Hey guys, tonight we time travel back to ancient Rome, not for the gladiator fights or Caesar salads, but to meet one of the most powerful, feared, and possibly cursed women in the empire's entire bloody history, Agrippina the Younger. You're born into a world of silk sheets and poison-tipped rings, of mothers whispering spells under their breath, and emperors who don't always stay alive long enough to enjoy their dinner. Your first lullabies? Probably screamed in Latin while someone got stabbed in the Senate. You don't get a soft start. No innocent farm life or peaceful olive groves. You're born in 15 CE to Agrippina the Elder and Germanicus, a national war hero and all-around Roman golden boy. Great genes, but terrible luck, because in Rome being popular means someone, somewhere, wants you dead. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive with a wail in the heart of the Roman Empire. You're wrapped in fine cloth, cradled by nannies who know better than to whisper gossip near your ears. Your mother, Agrippina the Elder, is a force of nature, fierce, political, and descended from Augustus himself. Your father, Germanicus, is the kind of war hero people chant for in the streets, tall, charismatic, and too good for his own good. Historians still argue whether his untimely death in Syria was natural or a cozy little assassination wrapped in diplomatic robes. You're just a toddler when your dad dies. One minute you're part of the empire's golden family. The next you're part of a widow's tragic procession. Your mother is devastated and suspicious. She blames Emperor Tiberius for Germanicus's death, which, spoiler alert, doesn't go over well. You learn young that love is dangerous, and ambition even more so. By the time you're 5, your family is deep in political quicksand. Tiberius, now fully suspicious of your mom's side of the family, starts pruning, executions, exiles. Anyone with a whiff of charisma or imperial blood is sent away or conveniently disappears. You're not even old enough to count your fingers properly, but already your world is a rotating door of arrests, whispers, and empty chairs at dinner. You cling to your siblings. You have 3 brothers and 2 sisters, some of them future emperors, some future corpses. Your big brother is Caligula. Yes, that Caligula. We'll get to him soon enough. At age 7, you're shuffled around Rome like a political chess piece. When your mom finally speaks out too loudly, accusing Tiberius of murdering her husband, she's exiled. They send her to a remote island, starve her, and break her bones. You don't see her again. Instead of lullabies, you grow up listening to the sound of locks being checked 3 times. Your name is a double-edged sword. Royal blood, yes, but also a flashing target. You quickly learn how to survive. Speak softly. Watch the room. Smile when necessary, but never too much. You grow up watching women like Livia and Messalina play power like chess. You take notes. You don't have time for dolls or games. You're training to stay alive. When you hit puberty, people notice. You're beautiful, not in the girl next door kind of way, but in the this woman could start a civil war kind of way. That's when the whispers start. That you have your mother's ambition, your father's charm, that you look like trouble. And in Rome, a woman who looks like trouble usually is, especially if she knows how to read. By age 13, they marry you off. The man's name is Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus. He's older, grumpy, and famously once said any child born from you two would be detestable and a public menace. Spoiler alert again, That child will be Nero. Your new husband is a crusty senator with a drinking problem and a mean streak. He has a chariot but no charm, and you, sharp-eyed and already calculating, learn to navigate the life of a Roman wife. You keep your friends close, your servants closer, and your scrolls of family history closest. You know how short a woman's reign can be in Rome, especially one with a name like Agrippina. While most 14-year-olds are learning embroidery, you're surviving backroom politics, gossiping matrons, and your husband's awful dinner parties. People start talking, not loudly, of course, but quietly. They say you're cold, clever, calculating, that maybe you've dabbled in old family magic. Nothing proven, but enough to earn a few sidelong glances at the forum. By your mid-teens, your body is a political tool and your bloodline a currency, but you're playing the long game. You've watched too many people rise too fast and burn out like oil lamps in a storm. You're learning how to wait. And then, just as things begin to settle, Tiberius dies. You're about 22, married, and still keeping your head down when your big brother Caligula steps into power. The child you once played with? He's now emperor, and he's about to drag your story into a whole new nightmare. You're 22, barely catching your breath from a decade of survival, when Caligula, your beloved brother, becomes emperor. And at first, it almost feels like a miracle. Finally, someone in the imperial palace who remembers your real name, not just the title attached to your dress. Someone who knows what you've lost. Someone who owes you. But it's Caligula. And Caligula doesn't owe anyone. At first, the empire celebrates. Germanicus's son has taken the throne. People toss flowers in the streets. They scream with joy. They name their pets after him. Caligula's smile beams across every coin. You get swept back into the capital like a returning heroine. For a heartbeat, you allow yourself to hope. Then the headaches start. Not for you, well, not yet. But for Caligula. Rumors swirl that he nearly died from a fever. When he recovers, he's different. Like the lights are on, but the candles are upside down and on fire. He becomes erratic, paranoid, cruel, and wildly imaginative. Suddenly, your brother is dressing as a god and demanding worship. He builds temples to himself. He replaces statues of Jupiter with ones of his own face. He starts speaking in riddles and laughing at things no one else hears. This, you think, is not ideal, and it gets worse. He doesn't trust anyone, not the Senate, not the army, and increasingly, not you. You're still living in Rome, still married to Mr. Grumpy Domitius, still raising your son Nero, who already shows signs of being a little intense. And you begin to realize that while Caligula may be your blood, he is also now the law. And he is very interested in cleaning house. Your two surviving sisters, Drusilla and Livilla, are under constant scrutiny. Drusilla is Caligula's favorite. Some say too favorite. Historians still argue whether their relationship crossed a line, but in any case, when she dies unexpectedly, Caligula unravels even further. That's when he turns his gaze to you. He begins publicly accusing family members of conspiracies. He exiles senators on a whim. Then, one day, you're summoned to the palace. There are no charges, just a message. Leave. You're exiled. Again. This time to the Pontine Islands. Remote, gray, full of salt air and slow mornings. The kind of place where your thoughts get loud. But you don't cry. You don't scream. You pack. You leave. And you start thinking. Because you've survived worse. And you have something most exiled noblewomen don't. A son. A son with the blood of Augustus in his veins. A son who, if the stars ever realign, could be your ticket back into the empire. Not as a pawn, but as a player. While you rot in your island villa, Caligula continues his reign of chaos. He builds floating palaces, threatens to make his horse a consul, and reportedly holds conversations with the moon. The people who once cheered for him begin to whisper, and then those whispers harden into daggers. One day, without warning, a courier arrives. Caligula has been assassinated, stabbed dozens of times in a hallway by his own guards, his body left in the dirt. Rome gasps. You are cautiously optimistic. Because with Caligula gone, power doesn't neatly pass to one person. There's chaos, uncertainty. Your uncle, old, stuttering, politically underestimated Claudius, is declared emperor by the Praetorian Guard. The Senate is shocked, but Claudius accepts, and he pardons you. Suddenly, you're back. Your exile lifted. You return to Rome with your son in tow, and a face that never lets on what you're really thinking. Nero, wide-eyed, clings to your hand as you walk past the ruins of your family's former glory. Rome has changed, but so have you. You take up residence quietly, play the loyal niece, attend the festivals, smile at the right people. You know how to vanish in plain sight. Meanwhile, Claudius marries Messalina, a woman so famously unhinged that historians debate whether she was Rome's greatest seductress or just really into drama. You keep your distance. You watch her manipulate the court, eliminate rivals, even hold a surprise wedding with another man while Claudius is out of town. Spoiler, he finds out and has her executed. Messalina's fall opens a vacuum, one that someone clever, charming, and beautifully connected might just fill. You've been patient. You've watched the players shift, and now your move is coming. The city smells like ambition today. You can feel it, humming in the cobblestones, thick in the colonnades. Rome is a hive of whispering senators and backstabbing matrons, and you, Agrippina, are back in play. You've returned from exile, kept your head down, and now you wait. Your husband, the ever-charming Domitius Ahenobarbus, has been increasingly distant, possibly jealous of your political proximity to Claudius. Not that it matters much. He drinks like a sponge and smiles like a corpse. But fate, in all her morbid generosity, has a little surprise for you. Domitius dies. Just keels over. Natural causes, they say. Sure. You mourn, publicly, tastefully. You dress in black, you shed a few performative tears, and you go home with everything he owned. Lands, estates, connections, and your son Nero now becomes one of the wealthiest teenagers in the empire. It's your first real win in a long time. And while Rome yawns and moves on, you're already planning your next move. But here's the thing. Wealthy widows in Rome are expected to grieve quietly, remarry passively, and mind their embroidery. You're not exactly your vibe. You keep Nero close. You hire the best tutors. One of them, Seneca, is a stoic philosopher who can sweet-talk a brick wall into doubting its own solidity. You see something in him, discipline, eloquence, and a quiet ambition that matches your own. Perfect mentor material. Meanwhile, you've got suitors, senators, generals, political insects buzzing around your lamp. But you've got your eye on someone different. A man with a dead wife, a throne, and a soft spot for women with imperial blood. Claudius, yes, your uncle, your biological uncle. Now, even for Rome, this raises eyebrows. But Roman society isn't shy about bending the rules when it comes to power. Still, this is a bold move, even for you. Historians still argue whether you truly loved Claudius, manipulated him, or both. But what's not up for debate? You seduce him. Carefully, publicly, brilliantly. You remind him that a union with you unites two branches of the imperial family tree. You present yourself not just as a woman, but as a solution to Rome's instability, to Nero's uncertain future, to Claudius's own legacy. And then there's the competition. You're not the only one eyeing the throne-adjacent spot. There's Lollia Paulina, a rich widow with ambitions of her own. She's elegant, politically connected, and rumor has it, not above using a charm spell or two herself. So, you outmaneuver her. With a few quiet accusations of black magic, whispers of treason, and just enough pressure applied at the right places, Lollia is exiled. Her estates? Seized. Her future? Gone. And that, dear listener, is how you clear the board. By 49 CE, Claudius agrees. You become his wife, his niece and his empress. And just like that, you're no longer operating from the shadows. You're seated on the throne next to the most powerful man in the known world. You're not there to look pretty. You join him at public events. You issue decrees in your name. You sit beside him at Senate meetings. Coins are minted with your image. Rome hasn't seen a woman this visible in power since the days of Livia, and even she played coy. You make no attempt to hide your influence. Claudius has a biological son, Britannicus, just a boy. But you push for Nero to be adopted, to be declared heir. You marry Nero to Claudius's daughter, Octavia. You weave the bloodlines tighter than a senator's toga. And one day, Claudius signs the papers. Nero is officially his successor. It's done. But Claudius, he's not a fool, not entirely. As the years pass, he starts asking questions. Why are his allies disappearing? Why does Nero have more support than his own son? Why do his wine cups smell slightly different? You know you can't risk him changing his mind. So dinner is served. A plate of mushrooms prepared by a trusted chef. Harmless enough, unless of course someone had a particular interest in speeding up the imperial timetable. Historians still argue whether Claudius's death in 54 CE was murder by poison, death by accident, or just bad mushrooms. But here's what everyone agrees on. He dies, and you don't cry. You make sure Nero is the one delivering the eulogy. You organize the funeral. You control the narrative. You wrap your grief in gold thread and wear it like a triumph. The empire mourns. You prepare. The palace doors groan open before dawn, the flickering torches casting long shadows as the boy steps forward. Nero. He's 16, barely old enough to grow a proper beard, but today Rome bows to him, and you, standing just behind him in imperial purple, hold the real reins. Claudius is dead, still warm in his tomb, and your son has been proclaimed emperor. You've done it. The Senate votes swiftly. The people cheer. Gold coins clink in the street, newly minted with Nero's face. And while the boy smiles like a marble statue, unsure what to do with his hands or the endless attention, you are serene, controlled, practiced. This was never about sentiment. It was about strategy. You place Seneca and Burrus, two of your most loyal allies, beside Nero. One a philosopher, one a general. Both smart enough to guide and grateful enough to obey. You're building a wall of competence around your son, and at the center of it sits you. Your face is still on the coins. You're not just the emperor's mother, you're Augusta, a title once reserved for Livia, the empress whispering behind Augustus himself. But where Livia preferred influence through subtlety, you make no such effort. You appear beside Nero at public addresses. You review troops. You accept diplomatic gifts. You issue edicts in your own name. Historians will later gasp at your boldness. But right now, you are the most powerful woman Rome has ever seen. But your son is changing. At first, it's minor. He wants more autonomy, fewer advisors, less interference. You humor him. He's a teenager after all. Hormonal, dramatic, convinced he's destined for greatness. And sure, maybe he's spending a bit too much time on poetry and singing and performing in front of, well, people. But you're focused on ruling, not recitals. Still, the whispers begin. That the emperor is odd. That he performs on stage while the Senate waits. That he cares more about rhythm than legislation. You dismiss it. Rome has survived worse, right? But behind closed doors, Nero begins pulling away. He stops consulting you. He starts disappearing into the night with actors, chariot racers, musicians. And one night, he tells you not to attend a state function. Not to attend. It's small, but it stings. Then it gets bigger. He begins resenting how much credit you get. For his reign, for his success, for his very crown. You made him emperor, but now he wants to believe he earned it himself. He's surrounded by flatterers who feed his ego like wine at a feast. And suddenly, everything you say sounds like an insult. And then comes Poppaea. Poppaea Sabina, beautiful, ambitious, and cunning in a way that you immediately recognize, because it's your kind of cunning. She flatters Nero, strokes his ego, supports his dreams of being a man of the people, even if that means setting the people's expectations on fire. You meet her once, briefly. She smiles, calls you noble mother, bows her head. You smile back and fantasize about throwing her off a balcony. Nero falls hard. She's married. It doesn't matter. He makes plans to be rid of her husband. You object, strongly, loudly, publicly. It's the first time the court sees you and Nero visibly at odds. Poppaea whispers. Nero fumes. And you, for the first time, start to lose control. It happens slowly, like watching vines grow up a wall. First, you're removed from state documents. Then the guards at your villa are replaced, without your knowledge. Then your appearances are postponed. Then, nothing. Your son stops visiting. And just like that, Rome's most powerful woman is no longer welcome at her own court. You pace your villa, the room's colder than you remember. You stare at the imperial standards, gifts once sent in reverence, now gathering dust. And you realize something that makes your blood go colder than a Tiber breeze. Nero isn't just shutting you out. He's planning something. You've taught him too well. You taught him how to manipulate the Senate, how to charm the crowd, how to eliminate rivals with a smile. And now, those lessons are coming home, like poisoned arrows flying back to the archer. Historians still argue whether you had a plan to reclaim control, whether you plotted a coup, used Nero's half-brother Britannicus, or tried to rally senators in secret. Some say you just wanted to survive. But Nero isn't taking chances. He orders Britannicus poisoned during dinner. The boy drinks, coughs, seizes, dies. Guests stare. Nero calmly sips his wine and calls it an allergic reaction. You see it. You feel it. And for the first time in your life, you're scared. You don't sleep well anymore. Even in your marble villa, tucked along the Bay of Naples with its gentle breezes and moonlit waves, your nights are restless. You used to pace palace corridors like a queen. Now you wake to creaking doors, phantom footsteps, shadows that don't belong. Nero hasn't spoken to you in months. You send messengers. He sends silence. You try visiting the palace. They turn you away. You host dinners, no one comes. Not the generals, not the senators, not even the poets who used to hang on your every word. You're no longer Agrippina the Augusta. You're a liability, and Poppaea? Still smiling, still whispering, still winning. But you're not done. Not yet. You still have friends, allies in quiet places, senators who remember what you did for the empire, guards who owe you favors. You start sending letters, reaching out, quietly, cautiously. You don't say you're plotting. You don't say you're afraid. But your words smell like caution and smoke, and somewhere in the dark corners of Rome, someone whispers, Agrippina wants him gone. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but that's enough. Nero hears it, and that's when the real fear begins. You hear rumors that he's consulting astrologers, asking about omens, dreams. One priest reports that the emperor keeps asking the same question. Will my mother die soon? Historians still argue whether Nero truly wanted you dead, or if he simply wanted peace from your influence. But what he does next? Oh, it's not subtle. He invites you to a festival. You're surprised and skeptical, but it's his birthday. He's sending a boat to escort you back to the capital. Publicly, it's all pageantry and reconciliation. A mother and son reunited. You smell the trap, but you go. You board the ship, a gorgeous new vessel, adorned with silk and polished brass. The oarsmen smile. The captain bows. It's all very ceremonial. You sit, you wait, and then, in the middle of the bay, the boat collapses. The roof caves in with a crack. Beams split. Screams echo. The sea rushes in. It's not a storm. It's sabotage. But Nero, bless his dramatic little heart, had a problem. The boat collapses too slowly. You don't die instantly. In fact, you swim. You, in your 60s, in full ceremonial robes, swim. A servant drowns. Another woman, mistaken for you, is clubbed to death by rescuers. But you drag your half-drowned body back to shore. Cold, furious, alive. Rome hears about it within hours. You, soaked and trembling, arrive at your villa. You don't run. You don't hide. You wait. Nero is panicking. He thought the sea would swallow you quietly. Now all of Rome knows the truth. He tried to murder his mother, and failed, spectacularly. He paces his marble halls. He screams at servants. He punches walls. What now? You, in your villa, light a lamp. You sit in the atrium and stare at the waves, wondering how many more times your own son will try to kill you before he gets it right. Then, one night, the lamps outside flicker. The guards change. You don't need an oracle to tell you what's coming. You dismiss your servants. You lie down on the couch. You adjust your robes, not with fear, but with resignation. There's a knock, then the door creaks, and Nero's assassins enter. They don't look you in the eye. That's the first thing you notice. 3 men, one taller than the others, one fidgeting with his dagger, one just sweating. These are not trained assassins. These are bureaucrats with blood-stained tunics, men sent to do what Nero couldn't manage with a collapsing boat and polite invitations. You sit up slowly. The silence is loud. They wait for you to scream. You don't. You've lived through too many deaths to flinch now. You've seen emperors collapse in their own vomit, seen senators hang from trees for the crime of looking too ambitious. You've danced through more funerals than festivals. You know how this ends. One man speaks, mumbles something about, "for the good of Rome." You almost laugh. Instead, you say the one line history will remember forever. Strike the womb that bore him. Maybe you said it. Maybe you didn't. Historians still argue about that. But it feels right, doesn't it? That you would offer not your throat, not your chest, but the source of his power. The part of you that gave Nero life. And now, ironically, the part of you he fears the most. They kill you. Not quickly. There's no grand sword swing, no poetic fade to black. You're stabbed. Then again. Then again. It's brutal, ugly, the way Rome tends to handle inconvenient women. And then it's done. They leave your body cooling on marble. Word is sent back to Nero. Success, at last. His mother is dead. But peace doesn't follow. Rome does not erupt in relief. It shifts, uneasy. Even Nero's closest advisors look uncomfortable. Because no matter how much he tries to frame your death as regrettable necessity, people remember the boat, the exile, the suspicious silence before it all went wrong. And Nero, he doesn't celebrate. He drinks. He mumbles to himself. He dreams of you. One servant reports hearing him cry in the middle of the night. Another says he sees your ghost pacing the palace halls. The once proud emperor now startles at shadows. He says the moon looks like your face. He builds temples to the divine, starts sacrificing to spirits. And at least once he claims a lightning strike during a storm was your revenge. "She won't leave me," he mutters. But Rome moves on, slowly. You are buried, not with full honors, but not discarded either. Nero tries to keep it quiet, but the city talks. You are too famous, too powerful, too unforgettable to vanish. Seneca keeps his distance. Burrus dies mysteriously not long after. Nero grows crueler, more paranoid. The spiral begins. And you become legend. Some say you cursed him with your dying breath. Others say you were always a sorceress, just hiding in noble robes. That your blood held old Etruscan magic. That your spirit lingers in the marble of the Palatine, whispering warnings to other women with too much ambition. You were never a saint. You schemed. You manipulated. You cleared your path with bribes, whispers, and sharpened glances. But you also survived Rome. And that, in itself, is almost supernatural. No woman before you had wielded power so openly, so unapologetically. And Rome didn't know what to do with that. Still doesn't. In time, portraits of you fade. Statues are broken. Histories edited. But in the margins of dusty scrolls, in the lines between facts and fears, your name keeps surfacing. Agrippina the Younger, mother of Nero, wife of an emperor, sister of one, daughter of another, possibly a witch, definitely a queen. The tide recedes along the Bay of Naples, dragging foam and whispers with it, and your villa stands empty now, except in memory. you're gone. Buried. Silenced. But Rome. Oh, Rome never forgets a good story, especially a terrifying one. The court pretends to move on. Nero throws more parties, more games. He commissions art and sings in theaters like nothing happened. But beneath the surface, your ghost looms large. The Senate grows colder toward him. The people become harder to please. And Nero, without your hand at the helm, begins to capsize in slow motion. You were the balance. Manipulative, yes, but precise. With you gone, it's all impulse and ego. Poppaea, now queen bee of the court, pushes Nero to consolidate power, which he interprets as kill more people. One of the first on the list? Seneca. The philosopher you once hired to mentor your son, now accused of conspiracy. Nero gives him the choice. Kill yourself, or let us do it. Seneca takes a warm bath, opens his veins, and dies quoting Stoic philosophy while the water reddens. You might have respected that. And then comes the fire. Rome burns. Not just a fire, the fire. It rages for 6 days, devours 10 of the city's 14 districts, and when the smoke clears, the people want answers. Where was Nero? Why were imperial guards stopping people from putting out flames? Why did Nero start construction of a massive golden palace immediately after? Theories fly faster than flaming rooftops. Some say he lit the city himself to clear space for his vanity project. Others say it was an accident. Historians still argue whether Nero played the lyre while Rome burned, or whether that image was poetic propaganda. But one thing is clear. Without you to steer him, Nero has turned reckless. Untethered. You would have managed the fallout better. You would have blamed a convenient scapegoat. You'd have pivoted with grace and bloodless precision. Nero, he blames the Christians. Rome's newest fringe religion becomes the imperial chew toy. Christians are arrested, tortured, and executed in increasingly creative ways. Crucifixions, burnings, throwing them to wild animals. Nero frames himself as protector of tradition. The Senate nods nervously. The people don't buy it. But it's not just politics turning. It's perception. People start whispering about curses, about ghosts. They remember the exploding boat, the failed poisonings, the bad omens. And they remember you. Agrippina, the empress who wouldn't die until she chose to. The woman who built Nero's power. And maybe they start saying, the woman whose death cursed it. In temples, priests speak carefully. Old women mutter your name as they pass Nero's statues. One poet writes a line, too clever by half, comparing Nero's fall to Icarus, and you to Daedalus, the one who warned him not to fly so high. He's arrested. Nero tries to reclaim control. More games, more speeches. But the more he talks, the less people listen. He starts lashing out again, accusing rivals of treason, staging public executions. He marries a young boy, claims the child is the reincarnation of his dead wife, dresses him in her clothes. People stop laughing. And now, the empire trembles. Governors in far provinces hesitate to carry out orders. Legions murmur. The East begins to ignore Rome's mess altogether. Back in the capital, some people claim to see your face in their dreams. Others claim lightning strikes on certain dates tied to your birthday. Even Nero, paranoid and sleepless, is said to keep a dagger under his pillow, just in case you come back. He builds a statue of you, then tears it down. He orders your name erased, then demands the Senate honor your legacy. He's unraveling, and your shadow stretches longer with every wild decree. Because you were never just a mother. You were an institution, a living reminder that Rome wasn't built by men alone. And with each misstep Nero takes, more people ask the same question. What if she were still alive? Years pass. Rome, ever theatrical, pretends everything is fine. But beneath the marble and music, the empire is rotting. Nero spends most of his time composing songs, racing chariots, and reciting poetry to audiences too terrified to yawn. His once loyal advisors are mostly dead, exiled, or too afraid to offer advice. Meanwhile, the provinces grow restless. Governors from Spain to Judea start questioning why they should obey a man who thinks he's Apollo. Legions stationed far from Rome watch their emperor sing love ballads in golden robes and mutter quietly into their helmets. The empire you once helped stabilize is unraveling, and Nero, in his silk-lined delusion, doesn't see it. You'd never have let it come to this. You'd have seen the fault lines. You'd have sent gifts to those governors. Quiet letters. Threats wrapped in flowers. You'd have smoothed the cracks, bribed the gossips, staged a fake miracle if needed. Whatever it took to preserve Rome. Instead, Nero plans another musical tour. Yes, a tour. To Greece, of all places. He announces he will compete in every artistic competition at the upcoming Olympic festival. Normally, emperors send statues or coins. Nero. He shows up in person, demands to sing in the musical category, and shocker, wins every prize. You can practically hear the Olympic judges sweating from the grave. While Nero sings and prances and bathes in applause, back in Rome, rebellion brews. One man, Gaius Julius Vindex, a governor in Gaul, finally snaps. He declares open rebellion, denouncing Nero as a disgrace to the empire. He's not subtle. He calls him a lyre-playing woman dressed in man's clothing. Oof, Nero laughs at first, then panics. He returns to Rome in a frenzy, trying to rally the Senate and army. But there's a problem. No one wants to fight for him. Not anymore. The Praetorian Guard, the emperor's own elite bodyguard, starts holding secret meetings. Senators disappear. Loyalists fumble for excuses to not attend Nero's dinners. And then one day, he receives a message. The Senate has declared him a public enemy. He flees the city. Alone, frantic, dressed in plain clothes, Nero bolts into the countryside like a child who broke a vase. He begs for shelter, calls on old friends, knocks on doors that once opened eagerly for his name. Now locked. You're not there to clean it up. He hides in a villa outside Rome. Surrounded by a few nervous servants, he contemplates his options. He doesn't have many. He tries bargaining. Maybe I could just govern Egypt? He asks no one in particular. They stare. You would have smacked him upside the head. Finally, the riders arrive. Soldiers, Rome's new leaders. They're not here to negotiate. Nero knows what's coming. He asks for a grave. No one answers. He demands someone dig a hole. Still silence. Panicking, he grabs a dagger. But he can't do it. The emperor who killed his mother can't bring himself to die by his own hand. So his secretary helps. The dagger goes in. Nero gasps, and with his final breath, he mutters, "What an artist dies in me." That's it. The curtains fall. Rome exhales. And suddenly, the empire belongs to no one. In the aftermath, civil war breaks out. 4 emperors will rise in a single year. Blood will spill. Statues will topple. But something strange happens during all this chaos. Your name reemerges. People begin reevaluating your legacy. You were ruthless, yes, but you were effective. You navigated the labyrinth of Roman politics with the precision of a surgeon and the instincts of a lioness. You survived the madmen, outlasted rivals, and placed your son on the throne of the greatest empire on earth. And without you, he burned it down. The statues come down hard. Nero's marble face, once so smug and serene, shatters against the cobblestones of Rome. People cheer, some spit, others just shrug. After all, emperors come and go, but this one sang. That's what they'll remember. The Senate officially erases his name from public memory, a practice called damnatio memoriae. Paintings scraped, coins melted. His name chipped off monuments like a bad tattoo. It's like he never existed. But you, they leave you out of that decree. Curious. In fact, you start creeping back into official records. A few senators, emboldened now that your son's corpse is cooling, even speak your name aloud again. Some with fear, some with admiration, a few with envy. They start calling you the last real ruler of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Not Nero, not Claudius. You. Because here's the quiet truth Rome doesn't say out loud. For 15 years, you held this empire together. Not with armies, but with strategy. Not with charisma, but with control. You balanced senators, generals, gossip-hungry elites. You tamed your son for a while at least. You made Nero, and when he spun out of orbit, you were the only gravity that could have pulled him back. You were a queen without a crown, a priestess of power in a temple of hypocrisy. And Rome loved you, feared you, hated you, but never ignored you. Now, in the vacuum left by Nero's death, the city turns to stories for direction. People whisper your name in crowded markets, wondering what you would have done differently. Matrons tell their daughters to be clever like Agrippina. Some say prayers in secret at your old villa, lighting candles for guidance. Others, of course, still blame you. You gave Rome Nero, after all. You raised the monster. What does that make you? A few go even further. They say you weren't just ambitious, you were unnatural, that you dabbled in the occult, that your will bent reality, that you didn't raise Nero, you cursed him, and so your legend splits. To some, you become a cautionary tale, a woman who reached too far, meddled too much, and paid the price. A female Icarus in a blood-stained toga. To others, you're a symbol of power seized in a world where women weren't supposed to want anything but safety. Of survival in a city that chews through emperors like figs in a banquet. Of brilliance punished simply for refusing to dim. And to a small, growing fringe of Roman mystics, you become something else entirely. They start calling you Divina Mater, the Divine Mother. It begins as a cult, tiny, fragile, worshipped in shadows. They claim you still speak in dreams, that your wisdom lives on in fire and salt water, that you can be invoked for protection or vengeance. They carry amulets carved with your profile, illicit, of course, hidden under tunics, whispered prayers over stormy waters. Girls named Agrippina again, after a generation of silence. Historians scoff. They say it's superstition, fringe nonsense, folklore, but they still write it down. Because stories in Rome are more powerful than swords. Your story is kept alive not by marble or bronze, but by fear. And fear, as you always knew, is the best memory aid of all. And just like that, Agrippina lives on. Not just as a name, but as a question Rome never quite answers. Was she a mother, a monster, a queen, or a god? Rome breathes, but not easily. The year of the 4 emperors begins. A mad scramble of power-hungry generals, backstabbing senates, and civil unrest that makes your era look like a garden party. Galba, Otho, Vitellius, Vespasian. Emperors come and go like bad actors in a tired play. And through all of it, your name lingers. In taverns, they joke about how none of these men could last 5 minutes against Agrippina. In temples, high-ranking matrons whisper your story to their protégés. If she were alive, none of this would be happening. Even the coins tell the tale. A few still float through the market. Those rare ones from Nero's early reign, the ones with your image. A woman's face, regal and calm, beside her teenage sons. Collectors call them cursed. Others call them sacred. Either way, no one wants to spend them. They're too powerful. Meanwhile, up on the Palatine Hill, the new emperors try to patch the empire together. Vespasian, the 4th and final emperor of that bloody year, eventually stabilizes things. He builds. He cleans house. He reasserts order. He does exactly what you would have done. Which might be why, in private, some of his own advisors say he studied your career before taking power. You're becoming a template. The idea that a woman could run an empire, even unofficially, no longer seems quite so impossible. And while no one dares say it publicly, Agrippina did it first. But of course, not everyone sees your ghost in such a flattering light. Some Roman historians begin sharpening their knives. Tacitus, for instance. Brilliant, but bitter. He paints you as manipulative, cold, poisonous. A woman who stopped at nothing, even incest, he implies, to reach power. His version of your story becomes popular because it's comforting. Safer, somehow, to believe that a woman could only rise so high by dark means. Better to imagine you as a villain than admit you outplayed them all. Still, even Tacitus can't deny your brilliance. He records your speeches, your strategies, your perfectly timed alliances. He grudgingly admits that you were a woman of masculine ambition, which, in Roman historian terms, is basically saying, she scared the toga off of me. Other writers follow suit. Suetonius, Dio Cassius, Pliny the Elder, they all wrestle with you. No one agrees. No one can quite define you. But all of them write about you. You live on in parchment, in libraries, in the imagination of every young Roman girl forced to memorize imperial family trees. And you know what else? You start popping up in dreams again. Not just in Rome, but in far-flung provinces. Merchants claim visions of a crowned woman with seaweed in her hair. Soldiers swear they heard a voice in their sleep saying, "Strike the womb that bore him," always in whispers, always just before a storm. By the 2nd century, your story has split into 1,000 versions. To some, you're a martyr. To others, a witch. One temple in Alexandria starts lighting candles in your name. They don't call it worship, of course. Just respect. A noble mother. A protector of women. They say you'll hear their prayers if spoken over seawater. In Gaul, a local legend emerges of a Roman woman who refused to drown, who walked out of the sea with kelp in her braid and lightning in her eyes. They call her Agrippina, and they say she haunts corrupt kings. Meanwhile, Nero's legacy is dust. He becomes a punchline in plays, a warning in law. His name gets attached to every cracked wall and bad decision. Pulling a Nero becomes slang for failure by ego. And yet, whenever people speak of him, they speak of you too. Because you were the spark, the origin, the architect. He may have ruled Rome, but you built the throne. And in the end, who's remembered longer? The actor who stumbled across the stage, or the one who designed the set? Time does its usual trick, blurring everything until it almost looks soft. By the 3rd century, Rome's power begins to fracture. Emperors are declared by armies instead of votes. Legions fight each other, and the frontiers begin to bleed. The empire is still vast, but it's brittle, like a marble statue riddled with hidden cracks. And your story? It refuses to die. You're no longer just a historical figure. You're becoming something stranger, something eternal. Writers who never saw your face start inventing dialogue for you. They imagine what you wore, what your final scream sounded like. They debate the color of your eyes as if it changes the moral of your tale. They call you schemer, survivor, sorceress. Even Christians, yes, even the early ones who despised Nero, start pulling you into their apocalyptic stories. A few sects claim Nero didn't die, that he fled east and will return to bring chaos. And who is often mentioned in the same breath? You. If Nero is the Antichrist in waiting, then who was the mother who gave birth to him? See? That's how deep your story runs. You, who once wielded political power sharper than a dagger, are now becoming myth. Some stories say you were reborn as a sea spirit, vengeful and clever. Others say you still roam the Tiber at night, looking for Nero's ghost so you can finally finish the job. It's ridiculous, and yet, it isn't. Because Rome runs on story, always has. And you're the perfect villain-hero hybrid, tragic, terrifying, too smart for her own good. Generations pass, a new religion rises, the church. They reshape the empire, scrub the temples, repurpose statues. But even in their new moral order, women like you are remembered as warnings. Every ambitious woman who dares speak too boldly is compared to you. Agrippina in disguise, they mutter, whenever a woman tries to rise above her station. And yet, you're also a mirror. Because when queens begin to rule, actual queens, not consorts, they study women like you. They see themselves in your hunger, your strategy, your refusal to settle for safety when the throne was just one poisoned mushroom away. Catherine de' Medici, Elizabeth I, Empress Theodora, they all get compared to you. Not always kindly, but always accurately. And across the centuries, a strange shift happens. Your myth becomes empowering. In secret libraries and smoky salons, early feminists rediscover your name. They stop painting you as evil. They start calling you the mother of power. Not perfect, not pure, but necessary. Because history, they argue, isn't made by good people. It's made by the people who refuse to be erased. And that was you. You, who walked the razor-thin line between brilliance and brutality. You who dared to shape your son into an emperor, even if it destroyed you. You who learned the rules of Rome and then rewrote them from behind a curtain. The men in your life tried to kill you. And eventually, they did. But even they couldn't kill your legacy. You live on in literature, in politics, in every woman who chooses ambition over comfort, who survives exile, who returns stronger than before. Your name is written in ink, whispered in legend, and etched, deep, permanent, into the spine of history itself. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's mother, but as Agrippina, period. It's late now, and Rome is quiet. Not the real Rome. It's long gone, layered under centuries of ruin and rebirth. But the Rome that lives in your head, the dream Rome, is still flickering behind your closed eyes. The columns shimmer, the torchlight glows, and somewhere behind velvet curtains, a voice like yours still lingers. You're standing on a marble balcony again, the wind from the Tiber tugging at your cloak. Below, the city hums, senators scheme, slaves whisper, lovers sneak through courtyards. It's the same world that once tried to bury you, to silence your voice, to scrape your name from its memory. But it didn't work. Because here you are, centuries later, being remembered in the quiet before sleep. You were never supposed to last. They tried to make you a footnote, a cautionary tale, a villain behind the curtain. But instead, you became a mirror. You showed us what power looks like when it doesn't apologize. You reminded us that legacy is built, not gifted. That history isn't only written by victors, it's rewritten by survivors. And whether the world called you empress, witch, murderer, mother, monster, or martyr, they still called you. Even now, the debate goes on. Were you heartless or just playing the game better than anyone else? Did you raise a tyrant or just give him enough rope to hang himself? Were you cursed or did you curse the empire? No one agrees. No one ever will. And that, in the end, is the truest sign that you mattered. Because in Rome, only the unforgettable get argued over. And you were unforgettable. So now, with the echoes of your story still soft in the corners of our minds, we slow everything down. The empire fades, the marble crumbles, the gold dust settles, and Agrippina, for once, is still. No more sharp whispers, no more clenched fists, no more poisoned cups or shattered loyalties. Just the hush of time moving forward, gently, like tide over sand. The flicker of torchlight becomes the hum of your fan. The footsteps in the Forum fade into the quiet creaks of your room. Your breath slows. Because whether you fall asleep believing she was a witch or a mother, a monster or a martyr, Agrippina's story has done its work. It reminded you that history isn't made in straight lines. It's tangled, messy, and achingly human, just like dreams. So take one more deep breath. Let go of the noise. Let the empire fall away. Let the sea lap against the hull of that doomed little boat, until it sounds more like waves than memory. You're safe here now, and the ghosts of Rome can wait till morning. Sweet dreams.